It is our training camp. Pick 6 at 6 here on the Hoffman Show. 6 most important things each and every day at training camp. We start with, well, obviously, it's the joint practice and the practices themselves. How did they come together? And that is something that I was really curious about going into it because they've been so, structurally different from anything I've ever seen with Eric Bieniemy. Obviously, Harbaugh and company have been running their practice a certain way for a long time, but they've actually also got a new OC in Todd Monken. The offenses typically kind of dictate how the practices go, but I asked Rivera after practice, how did this all come together?
Well, the biggest thing is we communicated early on in the spring. We put together a practice plan. We sent the copies back and forth to each other. Then we had the coordinators reach out to one another and talk about what they were looking for, what they needed to do. And we were able to put together a pretty good practice plan, I believe.
I think they did. I think the practice flowed well. There was definitely a little bit more standing around than I would say the typical Commanders practice. And there was one point during a special teams period where, they were doing punt coverage and then they were doing some field goal stuff later in a different special teams period. And I just had to wonder, with the offensive players not doing anything, was Eric Bieniemy just absolutely losing his mind at how many players were just standing around? But you got to practice teams. Look, when it comes to special teams, I would default to John Harbaugh. They've been awesome at it forever. He's obviously a former special teams coach. Yeah, sure, John, whatever you want. They'll let you run those periods. But largely it looked on the Commanders' offensive field like they've done. They had 7-on-7s. They had, one-on-ones during the 7-on-7s for the offensive defensive line. They had 11s. They did situational work. But it took a lot of hard work and overall a very, very successful day one. If you want to say the thing that was not successful was you want no fights, there were 2.5, let's call it. There was 2 legit on the defensive field where punches were thrown. Emmanuel Forbes in the middle of that first one where he gets swung at and he swings back and you get a little bit of a skirmish. And then Mark Andrews tackles Danny Johnson for no freaking reason. And F.A. Obata's like, that is enough. I'm going to punch you. And so we did get another skirmish. Boiled over a couple times. Rivera, afterwards, here's what he had to say about it.
It was really good. It got a little hot a couple times. It gets a little chippy, and we can't take it personal. This really is not about me against you. This is about us trying to develop and work together as teams.
I love that quote from Rivera. Quit taking things so personally. It's not about you. It's about us. It is about the entirety of the team. If that's the message he gave to everybody, good. And it worked. Rivera, after he and John Harbaugh talked to that defensive field, so the Ravens offense, the Commanders defense, there was no more issues. And there were no more issues on either field. The only skirmish, dust up, near, anything that happened on the offensive field happened after there was a late hit on Cole Turner. Terry McLaurin that got up in the defender's face and was like, nah, we don't do that here. Here was Terry on that particular skirmish and the intensity overall afterwards.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, you just want to protect everybody that's out here. Obviously, they're trying to make plays. We want to make plays, but at the end of the day, we're going to protect our teammates, and that's what happens in camp. Sometimes things get a little physical, but it didn't get too bad. So at the end of the day, it's just guys competing. But at the end of the day, we want to look out for each other's careers and make sure we're not doing anything that's too over the line.
Deron Payne talked about it as well, basically said, I'm here to get better. I am not here to get in fights. I'm here to work. And I think that is the mentality that the Commanders have taken into these practices is yeah, we want to be physical. Yeah, we want to compete. We want to do all these things, but we're not here to prove anything to anyone. We're here to get better so that we can win games in the fall. And there's a maturity and a professionalism about that I think is fantastic. Look, I'm not saying the Ravens don't have that, but there was a couple times that they crossed lines today, and there were skirmishes as a result. Obviously, the Ravens have been the way better team, done way more winning, so clearly they know how to do something right over there, and that is what it is. As for going into tomorrow, here was Rivera's message on what he'll tell the team to make sure things are squared away for the Wednesday practice.
Can't be chippy. It can't be about yourself. It's not personal. You get beat, you get beat. Let's just move on to the next thing and let's focus in on what's happening, what's important. We're trying to practice. Everybody's trying to get better, But that the chippiness you just can't have because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think that's such a good way to put it. It's like, if you lose the rep but you win the fight, like, what did you actually win? Cool. You set yourself up to not be any better on Sundays in the fall, and that's why we're here. So I think good job by Rivera putting that context in, reminding everybody the purpose of everything, and hopefully that leads to a positive result over the next couple of days. It'd be nice if Chase Young was out there. Young was barking during the fights. He also participated in individual drills. But number 3 on our training camp pick 6 at 6 is that Young continues to miss time. Here's Rivera afterwards today.
We'll see, but for the most part right now, we're just being smart with it. Again, we've got to continue to go through it. He will come out and he will do all of the individual, and then we'll see what the doctors say or how they're feeling about it.
I mean, at the end of the day, if he's ready to go for the season, he's ready to go for the season. But, like, damn, these are the 2 most important practices. Like, we can't say these are the 2 most important practices of the year and hype them up and talk about all. It's not even hyping them up. Just explain all the benefits and have them be self-evident as to why these are so talked about and so coveted. And then be like, well, it doesn't really matter if Chase participates or not, just as long as he's ready for the season. Well, like, yeah, being healthy for the season is better than not being healthy and doing something stupid. But, like, there is a huge cost to missing this. This is his only chance all summer long to work against not Charles Leno, not Cornelius Lucas, not Andrew Wiley if he lines up on the other side, and not the tackles down roster as he might during one-on-ones or if there's a mixed period or whatever. Like, here's a chance to work against a Staley, a Moses, like 2 of the better tackles, or in Morgan's case, a guy who's been around for a decade at this point in the league. Like, this is a really big opportunity for Chase Young to get live reps against another team, operating a different scheme, teaching different techniques, and he's not out there. That stinks. And it's a stinger. Those hurt. They can make you lose strength in whatever side. So, like, I think it's his right side, if I'm remembering correctly, but, like, he's not going to have a lot of punch in that right hand, potentially. So I'm not saying he should just, like, suck it up and go out there if he can't actually be effective and it's not worth it. But, man, it really, really stinks. And I think you can even hear the frustration in Rivera's voice here when talks about Young.
We'll see, but for the most part right now, we're just being smart with it. Again, we've got to continue to go through it. He will come out and he will do all of the individual, and then we'll see what the doctors say or how they're feeling about it.
It's like a little bit of exasperation. I know you can't, like, I don't know. I felt like he felt more exasperated when I saw him and was there and could read his body language as opposed to just hearing it. But there's got to be frustration here for a guy that you have so much hope for, that you're looking at to be the guy that you drafted him to be, the number 2 overall pick. I had someone on YouTube leave a comment the other day when we talked too much about Chase. And it's like, and he's named like some guys that are later round draft picks that you should talk about more. And it's like, I don't know. I kind of think talking about the guy who people were painting as a future Hall of Famer is pretty important. And so when you talk about the ceiling of where this team can be, he's a huge part of it. And again, this is not the end of days. If he comes back next week, he's ready for the season, okay, you got to be smart. You got to be safe. And I'm never going to go and poke at a guy who's apparently legitimately injured. But damn, this is a huge opportunity lost for Chase. And it's just the price of doing business sometimes in the NFL with injured players. There's not a lot you can do about it, which makes you feel that exasperated feeling. It makes you feel that hopeless feeling that you just wish there was some different path. And there's not. Time keeps marching, and whatever's on the calendar is on the calendar. And if you miss it because you're hurt, you miss it because you're hurt. And that is unfortunately what is happening right now with Chase Young. Our training camp, pick 6 at 6. All right, how did Sam Howell do today? Lots of different opinions on this, or lots of different input, I should say, on this. Here's Terry McLaurin on Howell today and his camp overall.
Yeah, he's really poised, man. I think he sees the field really well, and he's going to give us a chance to make opportunities on the perimeter, which has been great. His timing, I felt like, was really good with us today. As soon as we were getting out of our breaks, all of our receivers, the ball was right there, and he gave us a chance to run with it as well. So I think he did a great job, even when he had to improvise and roll out a little bit, to still keep his eyes downfield and continue to give us the chance to make plays. So he's been the same guy since we started camp and since he stepped in at the last game last year. He's just really, really poised.
I love that word poise. Like, we've talked about before on the show, from the way he handled the Dallas game to the locker room speech after the Dallas game to the way he handled the offseason to kind of what he's been doing now. Sheehan asked me earlier today when I was on with him at noon, like, do you think there's any semblance of a quarterback competition here? And the answer is just no, because Howell's been consistent. He's acted like the starter. He's performed like a starter, and we'll see how good he is as the starter. But there's just been no reason for him to lose the job. Like, Brissett hasn't done anything spectacular, although he's been fine. And I think head-to-head, like, I would grade Sam out slightly ahead of Jacoby, not even accounting for the curve of Howell being younger and having a lot more upside, and Brissett being this established veteran who is what he is at this point. Like, I actually think Sam's been as good, maybe even slightly better. And you see it in some of the things that Terry just talked about there, the improvisation, the improvisational skills. I did not say that right. We're just going to keep going. The improv skills, make it easy on yourself. See, I improv. And the playmaking, like where the ceiling is because of his mobility, because of his ability to throw from different arm angles, because of the zip. There's a ball today that he throws that I turned to, I think it was Zach Selby from the team. I was standing over there with Selby, and I just turned to Selby and I go, that's a pick six last year. Because if Taylor throws that ball with his velocity, Kyle Hamilton picks it, goes the other way, untouched for a touchdown. Howell gets back there, and it's a quick out or a quick spot route to Dotson, and he rips that thing to the numbers, and Hamilton whiffs on it. Like, he can't get there fast enough. Dotson's able to split him and the corner and get upfield a little bit. Like, those are the margins. And on a talent, like sheer talent level, he's got it. The ceiling is so high. The question is going to be, as Jonesy said earlier in the show, and as so many of us have been saying all along, is how consistently can he do it? Can he see the pressures? Can he make the right adjustments? Can he make the right reads? Can he actually execute the throws when he does make the right reads? Those are the things that down in, down out are going to dictate his success this year. And, obviously helps that he got guys like McLaurin who, the connection is growing, and you get the ball in their hands quickly. It's easier for that connection to grow because, he's pretty darn good. Here's Terry on that growing connection after practice.
I definitely think it has. We're still in the middle of camp, and we still got some preseason, regular season to go. But I feel like we're building a little bit of that trust where you get some one-on-one opportunity. He's going to trust me to come down and make that play. And as myself, I just want to continue to give him that trust. When you're going against a great corner like Marlon Humphrey and you're backside one-on-one, you got to win those reps so he can have that confidence in you.
As for what Rivera saw from Howell today, head coach on QB1.
I thought Sam did some really good things. There are a couple things I'd like to see him speed his internal clock up a little bit. I thought he could have gotten rid of the ball a couple of times when he didn't. But for the most part, he made some really good decisions, good throws. I really liked the way that the offensive tempo was. I thought their upbeat practice is what we need to do, especially against a good team like Baltimore.
That tempo doesn't come, by the way, without confidence. If he's not confident in what he's doing, and he's not confident in the play calls and confident in where the ball is supposed to go and all of those things, that tempo is not going to be there. And that's the thing that I still think is the biggest overall success of camp is Howell's command of the offense has been there, even if he hasn't always executed everything at the highest level. As for that one nit to pick that Ron just talked about, the ball getting out faster, here he was when pressed on that specific point of Howell and how he grew with it throughout practice.
Yes, and because again, I think the security of the whistle is now off. And I think he's got to understand that, and he started to later in practice. Early on, he held the ball a little bit more than I think he should have, and I'd like to see him get rid of it quicker.
You compete against another team, they might not be as nice as your own team, even if you got that yellow jersey on. And then certainly once you get in the game and you're wearing the same colored jersey and you're just as eligible to be tackled as everyone else. It is something that a lot of quarterbacks do in camp. They just take advantage of that and they keep reading out the play. But I think the good news is when you see Sam in games, he did take one sack the other night, and that was on him, but it was on a pressure. It's very instant. He's got to get the ball out now. Like, that's a missed hot situation, as opposed to he just held the ball too long on a standard kind of drop back. But on those plays, I think his internal clock's actually pretty good, and I think that's really impressive for a young guy to have that already at the NFL level. All right, 2 more notes. That was 4 things, plus 2, that'll be 6. That's right, because it's our training camp Pick 6 at 6, where we pick the 6 most important and interesting things from practice on any given day. Today, day 1 of the joint practices with the Ravens, talking about it all here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Christian Holmes continues to really impress me. Had a good game the other night, physical at the point of the catch. Sometimes you'd like him to be there a little bit earlier and get a pass breakup, but at the very least, he's there. It did have, I think, 1 or 2 in the game the other night where he's able to get there right as the ball is, knock it out. Has a couple other plays where he's right there to make tackles. And then you should see the physicality as a gunner. Today in practice, you saw that again. Some of the best reps that the Commanders special teams, like punt return unit, have, or with him guarding the gunner, getting good leverage, doing a good job, holding his ground. But then you also see some of the speed and physicality on the other side. You saw him pop a receiver here. There was one point where I looked over and I was on the offensive field, but I looked up because I kind of heard the ooze start and they were between reps on the offensive field. So you look up on the defensive field and you see one of the Ravens receivers. It was Laquan Treadwell. Remember him? Laquan Treadwell, old Ole Miss receiver. Been in the league 8 years at this point. Who knew? But he was running deep on either a post or a corner. I didn't see where the route started, but he's coming kind of 45 across the field. And you see Holmes use some makeup speed and get there and punch the ball out, give a nice little, incomplete, but not one where like the quarterback overthrows the receiver by 10 yards and then the DB does the incomplete sign and you're like, yeah, you just got beat and got lucky. No, this was an actual PBU from Christian Holmes. And so continuing to make plays, continuing to be around the ball, which being around the ball is not always the greatest thing for a DB, but because of the nature of the plays that he's making, Christian Holmes continues to impress. And that's why yesterday I definitively put him on the roster when we did our roster projection. And then last but not least, special teams notes. 1, Cameron Cheeseman had another bad snapping day. And I have got to remember to ask Ron Rivera about this tomorrow because today caused a field goal miss. Joey Sly missed one, and the snap was horrible. Tressway picked it, got it down barely, but it was hard to see, in real time, those slow-mo replays at practice. But I'd have to imagine it affected the operation, and because Sly missed it by a lot. There's another low snap that Way picked that was a good field goal. Just, you can't be having, he's good most of the time. Long snapper's not a good most of the time position. It is a no mistakes ever position. And I realize that is a really hard bar. And honestly, mistakes happen with long snappers probably more than you realize. But the holders in the NFL are so good that they make it look easy. But the consistency of bad snaps is not good enough for Cheeseman. And I know he's working on some technique stuff, but the time is getting short to have that percentage go up and the mistakes to go down to 0 in practice. This is not good. And by the way, if I was him, I would be like, Tress, I need you to go take a knee over there. Or I would set up some kind of mechanism. I don't care if you're snapping into a trash can. You got to practice. Which brings me to the other special teams note. Justin Tucker is the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL. That dude practiced more today kicking field goals than I think I've seen Commanders kickers practice combined in 8 years of covering practices. Yes, the Commanders did their live reps during special teams period. And it's a joint practice, so I don't know what kind of freedom they have to just do whatever on the side fields. I'm sure if on the fields that are being used, the Ravens would not be like, no, you cannot practice your field goals. Justin Tucker went through a whole routine on the far goal post, on the farthest field, and then saw him kicking on a different goal post. They also had the skinny field goal, make it harder goal post that is in between fields. I saw him kicking there at one point. This is the greatest field goal kicker ever. And he is practicing while the other players are practicing doing the thing that he does. It would be like if there was a basketball practice and Steph Curry was just practicing free throws on the side. If he's doing it, if I was a kicker and I had a joint practice with Justin Tucker, I would just follow him around like a lost puppy dog and do what he did the whole practice. Oh, you kick? Can I kick with you? No? Okay, what do? You do 8 from here, 5 from here, 4 from here? Okay, I'm going to go down there and do it. And then I'm going to come back like I'm a lost puppy dog again. It just blew my mind that this dude, like, I'm like, oh, a kicker who practices. Well, damn. I don't know how rare that is, but it seems to me if Justin Tucker's doing it, then everyone else should too. That is my kicker rant. Bet you didn't think that that's how we were going to end the training camp pick 6 at 6.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.